Hi, I'm Karen. I'm going to talk to you about the second part of volume photography, which is organizing everything before the day of the shoot. Now, the biggest thing you can do to organize yourself is have some sort of barcoding system. When I got started several years back, 4 or 5 years ago, there was a system called Photo Velocity, which I purchased, and it was a one-time purchase. It wasn't an annual subscription like a lot of them are nowadays, and it worked great. However, they don't make it anymore that I'm aware of, so I'm still using mine, and I'm going to use it until I can't use it anymore. But I have looked at other automation software systems that I might need in case this one doesn't work anymore. I found that a lot of them are like way over my head and way out of budget for me as an independent photographer. But those things may be changing pretty soon. I know that Miller's Lab does have some sort of barcoding software as well, right into their ordering software. So you may want to reach out and see what theirs is all about. And I don't believe they charge for theirs, but I'm not really sure. Now, some of the other larger companies that have these barcoding software available, they are, I couldn't tell you what their names are exactly. You'll have to do a search on them, but basically they will just give you the tools to be able to print out or use some sort of scanner on your phone or something, so everybody has a barcode. The one that I use is really simple, and it basically allows you to import a CSV file. If you have your rosters from like your teams, if you're doing sports pictures or school pictures or something, you can take your CSV file, upload it to the software, and then it will create a barcode for every person. At which point you just take and print them out onto little labels, and those labels I put onto little index cards. I then take my index cards and group them by team or grade, or however I have a group, and then I put them into a little plastic bag, and then I put that little plastic bag inside of a manila envelope. On the outside of the envelope I've got that group's name, and I've listed all the team or people on that in that group on the front, so that there's an organized way that I can group those people, and it's not just like this big huge, all these different people's barcodes and they're not organized. So I organize everything out before the day of the shoot. I organize them by the times that they're scheduled, so that when we get there, my assistant can easily tell, okay, right now it's this team's time to go, or this grade or whatever, and then open it and have like all their barcodes right inside, and then pull them out, and then the teacher, whoever else is there to help, or the coach that's there to help organize some of those kids, can just hand the barcode to the kid right before they come up to me. So then I basically just take the barcode, I hold it out, I shoot a picture of it, and then I stuff it in my back pocket, take a picture of the kid, and then move on to the next one. So it's just a really fast process. Depending on how many kids we have in that particular shoot that day, I may have less than a minute per child. So it's going to go really quickly, and having a system to organize you is absolutely hands down the number one thing you can do to make this easier on everybody and make it go smoothly. So besides a barcoding system, I'll talk more later about how that integrates into your ordering process and getting orders back to the right people properly and everything. But that's all I want to mention right now about pre-shoot stuff, is being able to have those rosters ahead of time from the coaches or whoever you're getting them from that helped you set the shoot up, or that you agreed upon everything with. So get those barcodes in place, or some ordering system. Now, before I had the barcoding system, we made up name slates, and all that was I just took a piece of paper for each kid. We wrote their first and last name on it, we wrote their team name, and I shot a picture of that, and then I shot a picture of the kid. But it became really tedious, it became time consuming, and if somebody wrote it in a hurry, it was hard to read later on. So this is a lot better system to have some sort of barcoding. Another thing I've heard other photographers do is on their order form, they'll write the file number of the image that they're taking. So maybe on your camera, before you take that image, you'll look to see, okay, it's going to be this image number, and then tell your assistant, and then they'll write that file number on the order form. But that can be a little bit crazy too, and then, anyway, barcoding system for me has worked great. Besides having that stuff to organize everything, having your order forms ready, that's the next thing I want to talk about. I've done it a couple different ways, but there's prepay where everybody pays ahead and you get what you get. I take the pictures, you get them back. That's all there is. I've also done it where there are proofs online. I have Zenfolio that I upload all my images to. Everybody has a different file name and password and all this other stuff. That gets a little more complicated, but I've found that I get more sales when we have a prepay system. People have to pay up front and that's it. There's a little bit more pressure for them to just purchase that day, and I think we've done a lot better that way. I've had some schools where we will put proofs online and they've got 2 or 3 weeks to decide, and then the final order date is this, and then it's like we have late ordering. And even though people are just purchasing stuff online most of the time, well, actually I've done it to where people can also turn in paper orders too. They have several weeks to do that stuff, but I just don't find that people actually buy as much stuff that way when they have a lot more time. So you basically just want to think about having either prepay shoots, or you want to have some sort of proofing system where people can purchase later online, or even look at their proofs online and turn in a group order in person, like with paper orders. But in my experience, I've found that people spend a lot more money if they pay up front and they get what they get. Sometimes it just seems to drag everything out if you give them way too much time to look at stuff and choose from different poses and all this stuff. It just gets to be a little bit too much. So I think the most direct approach is if you can have prepay. I think you're going to do better with that. Well, in my experience. Besides that, think about the ages of the kids that you're shooting. I find that when kids are younger, parents spend a lot more, like with T-ball pictures. That is our biggest volume photography job that we do all year, because there's a lot of little kids in it. Now, it does go all the way up through Little League, but I find that the younger the kids are, the more money parents end up spending on it, because their kid looks cute in their little outfit and they don't know if they're going to continue doing it. So it just happens to be one of those things. Now, as far as school pictures go, the participation rates in my experience have not been nearly as good. I think I'm on the verge of switching things up with school photography. I've been doing the traditional, blue marbled background, gray marbled background, just really standard school picture type looking stuff. And I find that that's kind of going out of style right now. So I think it's time for me to switch things up and see if that's going to promote more sales. I tend to have schools that want to look at the photos online beforehand, but again, I just don't find that the participation is there. So for whatever reason, I think that I'm going to have to change that up if school photography is going to start making as much money as sports photography. Now, as far as packages go, I like to keep it simple. I've done it several ways where you've offered a lot of different things and different types of products, and then just offered like 2 or 3 major packages, and then maybe a couple add-ons like a team photo or just one 8x10. And I've done a lot better when they've had less options, when there have been a lot of options up front on products that they can buy, and keychains and mugs and all this other stuff. It just gets to be too much, and there's too much to look at on an order form. So I like to keep it really simple. There are a lot of products that you can offer, so if you find that people ask you for things, that might be something that you can get them individually, or that you can offer on your forms. It's just kind of whatever you find and works for you. Let me see what else I wanted to talk about. Yes, as far as order forms go, I've experienced a couple different ways of doing it. I find one to be better than the other. There are prepay envelopes that have an order sheet attached. It has like the little perforated part, and you tear off the bottom and you seal it up with your money inside, and it's got all your information on it. I've used those. I've used them for school pictures, and they seem to work fine. But if I were to do them with sports, I don't find that they work out as well. What happens a lot of times in my case with sports is I will just do up an order form on a sheet of paper, and there's no envelope attached. There's nothing like that for anybody to put any money in, but people bring their money to the day of the shoot, and whoever's there assisting with me that day has a cash box that you can lock up, and they'll give out change if needed. But we really try to ask for cash up front with most orders. And I'll get into payment types here in just a moment. But when I have sports groups, I will often send an order form to one of the main people that I'm working with. They will then send it to the coaches, and everybody kind of prints off their own stuff for their own teams, and then they give them out. Now, I find that a lot of people don't bring their order forms to the shoot that day, so we end up bringing probably about 50% more order forms than that way people who forgot will have one there. And it's really important. You want to make sure that they have a way to order something. So just having those backups is important. So when I've done orders on a sheet of paper, I think it's been fine. Again, they just bring their money that day. We collect the sheets of paper. We check off on the sheet if they've paid. And then that's pretty much that. As far as the long envelopes that have like the, detachable part at the bottom, those seem to work okay. But there's cost in printing them. Again, if the coaches are printing something, or the head of the team, or whoever it is you organize the shoot with, if they're printing stuff out on their end, that's less for you to have to pay for. And if you get the envelopes at the bottom, those prepay envelopes, those do cost something. I know Miller's sells them, and several other places online. You can do a search for how to get them. You pre-print them at home, and then you hand them out. So there's ways to do that. Some will be more cost effective than others. Sorry to ramble about that. Something else you want to think about is, do you want to print on site, or do you want to offer prints that you get from a print lab and give them out afterwards? I know some people like to do printing on site where they have their own setup. They've got it, their camera tethered to their software that applies maybe like a general edit to something, and they print it right off, maybe Santa pictures or Easter pictures or something where you have like a mall type of, everybody from the public comes in, they want their 5x7, it's $10, you're done. I've not ever done that because I think about the quality of the print and how it looks. And in my experience, it's always seemed like it was kind of expensive to get a really nice printer set up and then get the paper. There's so many issues with printing, like having everything lined up and making sure, something doesn't happen during the print process. And I like to have a little more control over the editing process so that it looks right. I like to make sure things are cropped properly, even with the best setup of putting your tripod up in a certain spot and making sure it doesn't move, and fixing the focal length on your lens so it doesn't move, and this and that, controlling the lighting, all of that stuff. You can do all those things to try to make sure all your prints come out the same and that they look good when they're being printed, but I find in my experience, I just like to send them off to a print lab, and I like to have a little more time to get all of that right and make it look the best that it can before my customer gets their final product. So if you want to do that on site, that's totally fine. I can't give you any advice on it because I haven't done it before. Taxes. We need to think about taxes. Some states you don't have to collect sales tax, but I believe the majority of them you do. I know for me, it's easier to just include that in the price of my packages, and I put that on my order form. There's a little disclaimer at the bottom of my order form that says that taxes are included. If you want to have a basic package and then add taxes to that, I think it gets a little messy, because then you're sitting there, splitting hairs and collecting pennies and all this stuff if you're trying to take cash from people. So for me, I just kind of work it into my cost, and then I later on deduct it out and save that money aside so that I can pay Uncle Sam. And it works really well for me. So don't forget to pay the government. Liability insurance. This is very important. If you are an independent photographer and you're going out doing all these shoots, it is a really smart idea to have it. There are lots of people on site. There are lots of things they can trip over. They can break your equipment. You're going to want to replace that stuff and not have to pay out money and damages to other people if they get hurt. All kinds of stuff can go wrong. I find when there's a lot more people there, the odds of something happening are a lot higher. So being able to have something in place to cover you, your equipment, and them is really, really smart. Other thing, I know I mentioned commission earlier briefly, but I just want to say, depending on who you're working with, talk to them to see what their expectations are about that kind of stuff. We've been in situations where places will ask for a lot of commission. I know in particular with school photography, they've told me that with some of the companies that they've used before, they get 50% profit from the commissions. And for an independent photographer, that will break everything. That's really hard. And then it pretty much leaves you nothing for all the work that you do, and it's just not doable for me. So working out a number is really important up front. Know what they expect of you. A lot of times these are fundraisers for the team and for the schools, so it's understandable that they're asking for some sort of commission from profits, but just be on the same page as far as what you've agreed upon. So oftentimes 10% is what I will end up giving back, what I can agree on with them. Sometimes they may specifically want a certain dollar amount from each package. So you need to determine, well, how much is the minimum amount per package? Is it just, you know, adding on a team photo, or is it a whole package, you know, where it might be $30 or $40 or something? So just be in agreement about what you're going to give to them, and do up your numbers ahead of time, and, you know, see if that's doable for you, and kind of go from there. So this is basically everything I wanted to talk to you about with organizing before the day of the shoot, so you'll be more prepared, getting yourself ready for that day. There's a lot that goes into it, so I think the organizational part is what saves you, or what makes it a really great shoot versus a really difficult shoot. In my next video, I'm going to talk more about what you do on the day of the shoot and things to look out for and what to expect. So I will see you then.